Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our 30 on Third Thursday. I'm John Henderson. I am the Director of Learning and Development for the Employers Association. And for the next couple of minutes, we are going to talk about some core competencies that any HR professional should master. If at any point during this 30 on Third, if you have questions or a comment, please put it in the chat box and I will respond to that. We are recording this session so that we can have it for people who didn't quite make it to today's 30 on Third Thursday. And with that, I am going to take myself off video since nobody else is on video, and I'm just going to walk us through the program. But again, if at any point you have a question or comment, I want this to be as interactive as feasibly possible on a Zoom webinar platform. So what we're going to talk about today is the core competencies. And really what I would like to jump off with is, in the chat box, what do you think are some core competencies that any and all HR professionals need to master? So put it in the chat box. What do you think some core competencies are? To be an influencer. Thank you, Stacy. What other thoughts around core competencies? Empathy. Thank you, Sean. Yes. Respect, empathy, knowledge of business structure to be able to be a resource. Yep. Thank you, Noel. Compassion and understanding. Thank you, Linda. Understanding of company policy. Very good. An active listener. Yeah, that kind of goes hand in hand with why a lot of people are in HR, because they are the active listener. Problem solving. Yep. Okay. So, here we go. Proactive, not reactive. Yeah, definitely. It's all about planning. So what happened here internally at EANE is that over a year ago, we started talking about what programs, what information, what training, what skill sets should we identify and put together for our HR family. You guys are so good about sending staff to training programs, leadership programs, compliance programs, those types of things. It's time to take care of yourself. It's time to look at your bench strength. It's time to look at your workforce planning and figure out who's going to be the next leader within your HR department at your company. So what we did is then we brought in some practitioners, some CHRO folks, some academicians from Elms College. If you know Kim Kenny Rockwell, she's been involved with this as an advisor to the program as well. And we asked them, what are the core competencies that they think that an HR professional needs to master? And after a lot of great dialogue and discussion, they agreed upon these 8 core competencies. And many of these are what you put down are embedded in some of these core competencies: leadership, relationship building, business acumen, project management, talent translation, change leadership, critical thinking, and strategic thinking. Definitely a difference between the two, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. So there wasn't any arm wrestling needed to come up with these core competencies. They really kind of sat there and we met and discussed, and these are the buckets we came up with. So when we look at each of these, we want to look at leadership. Skills in this area need to be developed and perfected in leadership to understand three things: how to lead yourself. That's our person in red in the middle. How to lead others, and how to lead the organization. So those are the three areas of leadership that we identified: leading self, leading others, and leading the organization. And what happens here for the leadership piece is you need to be self-aware. That's a critical piece to be an effective leader. You know how to lead others and get them to follow you. And finally, understand where you fit in leading the organization. So this is where we talk about perfecting how to influence both up and down the ladder, and how, as an HR professional, it's important to be a champion of the entire organization, not just your department, not just the people you like, but a champion of the entire organization. The second one that was identified is relationship building. And you touched on this already. Relationship building, some of the key pillars of relationship building all are supported by emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is really the capacity to recognize our own emotions, our own feelings, and how to discriminate between different feelings and label them appropriately, and to use emotional information to guide our thinking and behavior. So when we're talking about relationship building, again, it goes back to that self-awareness piece, that empathy, which several of you mentioned, your motivation, being able to self-regulate, and social skills. So another core competency for an HR professional is that relationship building. And I would say that anybody who goes into the HR profession definitely is there because they feel strongly about building and maintaining relationships. Somebody mentioned this as well, but another core competency, business acumen. So simply put, what we're talking about here, business acumen, understanding how a company makes money and achieves its goals and objectives. So why do you think, and again, I'm going to ask you to put in the chat box, why do you think that we identified business acumen for an HR professional as one of the core competencies? You can't help the business if you don't know the business. I love that. Is that your own quote? Because I think that's fantastic. You can't help the business if you don't know the business. Well, Darlene, it's yours, but you should trademark that because we may steal that one. It's important to be able to resource properly. Yep, you have to understand all of that. Very good. Why else? Okay, I'll give you my thoughts. Oh, here we go. To align the department with the company, what are the needs, areas of improvement, etc. Right, Sean. And not just the department, but every department, right? We want to look at all of the different departments and how those align with the company. You can't get support for HR initiatives if you don't speak the language. Tammy, that's perfect. I was just going to mention that. And I really, truly was. Now, so as an HR leader, you will want to understand, you need to understand the data or data, however you want to say it, to make a business case, right? The more you understand about the financial aspects of your organization, the stronger your voice will be at the table. Beverly, why can't I see the chat? I'm not sure. It might be the device you're on, but feel free to answer in the Q&A because I am here seeing your question in the Q&A. I'll monitor both. Okay, so again, understanding the financial aspects gives you that stronger voice. Project management. So in project management, what we're talking about here is we identified this as a, sorry, I'm just monitoring something else here, as another core competency, because not only does it help you with your department, your HR department and projects, but it helps you better understand the projects of other teams, how they're spearheading their project, understanding the resources they need, understanding maybe not every minute detail, but thinking about their project and what does that mean for our workforce planning. I love this one. The talent translation and curator. What do people think I mean by, or not me, I'd like to say I created all this, but I didn't. Talent translation and curator. What do you think that core competency is all about? You can put it in the chat box or the question box, Beverly, if you can't get into the chat. Anybody? Understanding company culture. Qualified candidate may not fit with company goals and culture. Yep, it's about the hiring process. Staff's abilities and their development. Yep, thank you, Beverly. Finding and developing talent. Yeah, ability to find, acclimate, and retain talent, and use it as a retention tool. HR is the gatekeeper of talent in the organization. Isn't that true, Stacy? So when we talk about this, it really is what you're all saying. It's that developing internal training and intern programs, curating talent of resources to ensure they're properly assigned. Yeah. When you think about a museum curator, right? What are they doing? They know every piece that's in their collection. They know what needs to be added to a collection, where the collection should be. It's all about that curator type role. This is really where it gets to that workforce planning. It looks at understanding what you need to have, where those resources and talent need to be. You need to think about the succession planning and developing and offering staff training plans, which you talked about. So again, when we're looking at this as a core competency, we're thinking about the workforce planning. And this is where, if you're already at that higher level in the HR role, look at who's coming up behind you. What do they need? Maybe you already have mastered these core competencies, but you want to develop your bench strength behind you. That's what we want to do, is look at, does the next generation, does the next person to fill my shoes, or do I have the core competencies and the knowledge and the talent to fill the shoes of the person above me? So that's why we're looking at these core competencies here. Change leadership. If you don't have this core competency down pat and since last March, then God love you that you're still in it. But change leadership, embracing change. Well, we may not have embraced the COVID change, but we knew that change had to happen for many of us, whether it was people working remotely, safety protocols to put into place, what is it doing to our business, those types of things. So when we're looking at change leadership, We want to be able to anticipate, nobody would have anticipated COVID though, but we want to be able to anticipate and plan for change. We want to develop strategies for overcoming people's natural resistance to change. And your role as an HR professional in facilitating effective change, right? So you want to anticipate and plan, help people overcome their natural resistance to change, but also help facilitate effective change. If you're not familiar with Beckhart's change model, it's identified first steps, and I'm paraphrasing, identified first steps, a plan, and communication can definitely help overcome people's natural resistance to change. So we're going to focus a lot on change leadership as we roll out some programs for HR professionals. Critical thinking is another competency that we'll be focusing on. So critical thinking is really a tool set, a process that you can use during activities such as problem solving, decision making, innovation, leading, negotiating, those types of things. So when we think of critical thinking, we're thinking of it as a tool set. There's a problem, we're going to look at what is the decision-making process, what is the innovation, and to come up with a solution. The other side of that is the strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is thinking beyond the specific issue or task at hand. So you examine implications, indirect impact, short and long-term effect. So for example, if you're buying a car, and I just went through this process, if you're buying a car, you use critical thinking to pick out, what features do I want? What packages do I want? What's the gas mileage for this car? Is that important to me? Those are critical thinking tools. Strategic thinking looks at the long term. What's going to be the value of the car 3 years down the road? Right? How much maintenance will I eventually need to put into this car 5 years down the road? And you base that on reviews, right? You base that on Edmunds or Kelley Blue Book values. So critical thinking, it's kind of solving the problem right here, right now. Strategic thinking is thinking of the long term, the impact of the long-term piece of that. So those were the 8 core competencies that this esteemed group came up with. So what? So what? Why did they do that? They did it to help us create something unique for our HR partners. In September, we're going to be rolling out the HR Leadership Certificate Series. And the audience for this, HR professionals who demonstrate capacity to assume more leadership responsibilities within an organization. This may be you. This may be somebody that works for you within the HR department. This may be somebody you know in another organization. But it's not really for those people that are at the CHRO level. It's not for somebody who's got a year under their belt in the HR profession. But it's really those people that have demonstrated that they're ready with some additional help to assume more leadership responsibilities within an organization. So the way this is going to be structured is that in September, we'll have a kickoff. We're limiting this to 12 participants. It's going to be a very intense program. It'll start in September of this year and go through June of 2022. Each month will focus on one of those 8 core competencies that we just discussed, that I just went through. They'll have a half-day session specifically on that core competency, led by some of the people that help us put this together. And it will be a project-based series. So for instance, if I'm part of the program, I'm going to come to it with a problem or a project that I'm working on that I want to solve, that I want to have something concrete to show at the end of the program. Throughout the course of this series, they'll also have homework assignments. They're also going to be given the opportunity we'll probably give them a choice of 2 to 3 executive coaches to work with. They'll have an initial meeting with each of the ones that they would think they want to work with, and then they'll identify who they want to work with, and that executive coach will help them on these core competencies throughout the course of the 8 months or 9 months. They will also be assigned a project accountability advisor. This person's role, the project accountability advisor, is there to help them, not help them, but make sure that they're focused on the project that they came into the program with. They're there to say, okay, John, how are you doing with that? What other resources are you looking at? Maybe you need to talk to one of your peers in the program. They're not there to be the executive coach. They're really there to kind of push them along in their project. The program will also include several assessments, including a 360-degree feedback assessment. And at the end of the program in June of 2022, we really want to have a graduation ceremony, so to speak, where we would encourage the person's CEO to attend. Sorry, I just got it. This program looks interesting. Can you give an example of a problem that someone might work on in this program? Sure, Noel. It could be anything. Perhaps it's a restructure of a department within the organization that HR has been asked to come up with a plan for. It could be building a succession plan for the entire organization. We don't want to pigeonhole and say this is what you have to do, but we really want it to be impactful so that it's real life, that it's something that will impact and benefit the organization at the end of the series. Hopefully that answers your question. So it's a very intense program, again, limited to 12 people. They have to be committed to it. There is an application that's online on our website. We're only using the application because we want to make sure it's the right fit for people. If somebody is already, an executive VP of HR, it's probably not the program for them. If somebody doesn't have any HR experience, it's definitely not the program for them. We want to make sure that we're getting peers that have the same kind of experience and background in the program so that they can work off of each other. Okay, great, Noel. Thanks for letting me know that. It is a high price tag. It's $5,995. That'll include everything: the executive coach, the project advisor, accountability advisor, all of the assessments used, the facilitated time during the course. One of the things that's really interesting for those of you that are in Massachusetts, that this program will be available on the Express Fund site. If you are familiar with that, it reimburses up to $3,000, 50%. So this program would be reimbursed to you if you're over 100 employees at 50%. And even for those under 100 employees in Massachusetts who qualify for the Express Fund, they will be able to get the 50% back as well. So there is some of that discount to be considered. But that's kind of where we brought this program to fruition. What questions does anybody else have for this? Anything on the core competencies, anything on the program that we've just announced? I don't see any questions coming in. If you do have questions, can I apply even if I'm not 100% sure I can attend? Yes, you can definitely do that. I mean, we will definitely take your application, and then you can figure out if you can get it pushed through the leadership that you need to. We currently have a person is receiving coaching as part of a succession plan. Would this be a good program for them? I would have to know a little bit more, Linda, about the person. But if you've identified the person as that they are going to move up in the HR department as part of this succession plan, then yes, I believe this would be a great program for them. It's not just the content and the coaching and the project accountability, but it's also really that peer-to-peer interaction. So they'll definitely have 11 other people to bounce ideas off of and learn each other. How would I best identify the employee to attend? We do not have HR dedicated employees. That's a good question, Beverly. It really is focused on HR professionals. If you're thinking that that you're going to have a dedicated HR professional out of one of your employees, it may be a good program. I'd have to probably talk with you a little bit more offline for that, just because if to know what their foundational knowledge of HR is right now. And it could be that maybe they would start more at the HR Essentials program that we offer, but I'd be more than happy to talk to you offline about that. Well, I'm going to give you all back 2 minutes of your time today. I appreciate you being with me today. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, John Henderson at the Employers Association. I'll also send this recording out to everybody in the slides so you have it and think it over. And if you have somebody identified or you are interested in the program, please reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. If you can get outside, please do so, breathe some fresh air, stay safe, and thank you for joining me today.